The stars in the Vareth expanse had not seen a living ship in 3,000 years. Every species in the galaxy knew this simple truth. Enter the expanse, and you will never return. The beasts lived there. The Kethvorin, monsters the size of mountains that drifted through the dark spaces between stars and ate anything that moved. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they wanted. They simply appeared, phasing through the fabric of space itself, and then everything died. Entire civilizations had vanished in a single night. War fleets with thousands of ships had been swallowed without a single survivor. The greatest weapons ever built had done nothing against them. So the galaxy did the only thing it could do. It ran. It drew a line around the Vareth expanse and declared it forbidden space. Ships that went near the border were destroyed by their own people, just to be safe. The beasts became stories told to frighten children. They became the reason every species in the Galactic Concordance slept with one eye. OPE and Dr. Alara Vance had heard these stories all her life. She was a xenobiologist on the research vessel Meridian, studying ancient extinction events across the galaxy. At 34 years old, she had visited more dead worlds than living ones. She had walked through the bones of civilizations that had been old when her ancestors were still learning to make fire. And in every ruin, she found the same thing: fear. Deep, ancient, terrible fear of something that came from the dark. Humanity was new to the stars. They'd only joined the Galactic Concordance 50 years ago, and the older species still looked at them with something between confusion and disgust. Humans were soft, they said, emotional. They formed bonds with animals and called them family. They cried at sad stories and laughed at nothing. They touched each other constantly, hugging and holding hands like children who had not learned to stand alone. The Torvashans, with their armored bodies and 400-year lifespans, found humans weak. The Veleth, with their cold logic and perfect mathematics, found them irrational. The Kareth, with their hive minds and perfect unity, found them chaotic. Every elder species agreed on one thing: humans would not last long in a universe this dangerous. Alara did not care what they thought. She loved her work. She loved the mystery of it, the puzzle of understanding creatures that had been dead for millions of years. She loved her small cabin on the Meridian, filled with plants and photographs and a stuffed bear she had kept since childhood. Her Veleth colleague, Dr. Seneth, had once asked her why she kept such useless things. She had smiled and said they made her happy. Seneth had not understood. The day everything changed started like any other. Alara was in her lab, studying bone fragments from a world called Veleth 4, when the ship shook. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Red lights flashed. She grabbed her console as the Meridian twisted and groaned around her. Navigation failure, the ship's computer announced in its calm, dead voice. Emergency exit from faster-than-light travel. Current location, unknown. Alara ran to the bridge. The crew was already there, staring at the main view screen with faces pale as death. Captain Torvex, a massive Torvashan with scars covering half his body, stood frozen at the center of the room. In his 4 centuries of life, he had fought in 12 wars. He had killed more enemies than he could count. He had never been afraid of anything. He was afraid now. "Where are we?" Alara asked, though part of her already knew. "The Vareth expanse," Seneth said. The Veleth voice was steady, but her 4 eyes were wide. "We are approximately 3 light years inside the Forbidden Zone. Our navigation crystal has shattered. We cannot leave." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. They were dead. It was only a matter of time before the beasts found them. "Begin self-destruct sequence," Captain Torvex said quietly. "Better to die quickly than to be eaten alive." "Wait," Alara said. "Just wait. We don't know they're here." "We don't know. They are always here," Torvex interrupted. This is their home. They will come. And when they do, there will be no pain if we are already gone. The crew began moving to their stations. No one argued. No one cried. They had all accepted their fate. Alara wanted to scream at them, to shake them, to make them fight. But fight what? Fight how? The Kethvoran could not be fought. Everyone knew this. Then the lights flickered. Something appeared on the view screen. It was vast, larger than anything Alara had ever seen. It looked like a living storm, a creature made of darkness and light twisted together. Tendrils of energy drifted from its body like hair floating in water. At its center, a single eye burned with the light of a dying star. Kethvoran, someone whispered. The words spread through the bridge like poison. Captain Torvex reached for the self-destruct button. His hand was shaking. Stop, Alara said. Her voice was barely a whisper, but something in it made everyone freeze. She was staring at the creature on the screen. Her eyes narrowed, her head tilted to one side. Look at it. Really, look at it. There is nothing to see, Torvex said. It is a monster. It will kill us. No, Alara said. She stepped closer to the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. Look at how it's moving. Look at its pattern. It's not hunting. It's not coming toward us. The creature drifted slowly through the void, its massive body rolling gently like a whale in deep water. Its movements were wrong somehow. Too slow. Too careful. It's hurt, Alara breathed. That thing is injured. Impossible, Seneth said. Nothing can hurt a Kethvoran. But Alara was already running calculations in her head. She had spent her whole life studying wounded creatures, dead creatures, creatures that had suffered and died in ways no one else cared to understand. She knew pain when she saw it, and the beast in front of them was in terrible, terrible pain. Light was bleeding from its side like blood from an open wound. Something was embedded there, something wrong, something that did not belong. The creature's movements were weak, exhausted. It was dying. Alara made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change the galaxy forever. I'm going out there, she said. The bridge erupted in chaos. Captain Torvex grabbed her arm. Seneth called her statistically insane. A dozen voices screamed at her to stop, to think, to be reasonable. But Alara was already walking toward the airlock. She had spent her whole life studying death. Now, for the first time, she had a chance to stop it. The airlock sealed behind Alara with a soft hiss. She stood in the small chamber, her hands trembling as she checked her spacesuit for the third time. Through the thick glass of the outer door, she could see the creature waiting in the darkness. Its massive eye watched the ship with something that might have been curiosity, or hunger, or nothing at all. Captain Torvex's voice crackled through her helmet radio. Dr. Vance, I am ordering you to stop. This is madness. You will die for nothing. Maybe, Alara said. Her voice was steady even though her heart felt like it would burst from her chest. But I have to try. Why? The old warrior sounded genuinely confused. It is a monster. It has killed billions. Why would you risk your life for such a thing? Alara thought about the question. She thought about all the dead worlds she had walked through, all the bones she had studied, all the species that had vanished because no one had tried to understand them. She thought about her grandmother, who had nursed a wild fox back to health when Alara was a child. The fox had been scared and mean and had bitten her grandmother 3 times. But she had kept trying anyway. Because it might be scared, Alara said finally. And scared things need help, not hate. She pressed the button. The outer door opened. The vacuum of space pulled at her body, and she pushed herself out into the endless dark. The creature was enormous up close. Its body stretched across the void like a living nebula, shifting colors dancing beneath its skin. Energy crackled along its surface in patterns that reminded Alara of lightning storms on Earth. The eye at its center was bigger than the entire meridian, a swirling pool of light that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Alara floated toward it. She moved slowly, keeping her body relaxed, her movements gentle. She had learned long ago that frightened animals responded to calm. She did not know if the Kethvaran could feel fear, but she treated it as if it could. "It's okay," she whispered, knowing the creature could not hear her through the vacuum. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." The creature did not move. Its massive eye tracked her progress, watching, waiting. Any moment, it could reach out with one of those enormous tendrils and crush her like an insect. Any moment, it could phase through space and disappear, taking her with it into whatever nightmare dimension it called home. But it did not. It simply watched Elara reach the womb site after 20 minutes of careful floating. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. A crystal the size of a small house was embedded in the creature's side. It was dark and ugly, covered in sharp edges that seemed to drink in the light around them. The flesh around it was rotting, dying, bleeding energy into the void in a steady stream of light. "What happened to you?" Alara murmured. She reached out and touched the creature's skin. It was warm, even through her gloved fingers. Warm and soft like the belly of a sleeping animal. The creature shivered in her touch but did not pull away. She examined the crystal more closely. It was old, incredibly old. Whatever had put it there had done so a very long time ago. Centuries, maybe. Perhaps even longer. The creature had been carrying this wound for ages, slowly dying, unable to remove it alone. "Okay," Alara said to herself. "Okay, I can do this." She unclipped a plasma cutter from her belt. It was a small tool, designed for cutting through ship hulls during emergency repairs. She had no idea if it would work on something like this. But she had to try. The first cut took an hour. The crystal was harder than anything she had ever seen, and her little tool barely scratched its surface. Sweat dripped down her face inside her helmet. Her arms ached. Her oxygen supply slowly ticked down. Back on the meridian, the crew watched in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply stared at the tiny figure floating beside the impossible creature, working. "Her survival probability is now 0.001%, Seneth announced at one point. "Stop calculating," Captain Torvik said quietly. His eyes never left the view screen. "Just watch." The second cut took 2 hours. The crystal began to shift, loosening from the creature's flesh. Energy leaked faster now, spilling out in waves of light that washed over Alara's body. It did not hurt. It felt warm, like sunlight on a summer day. The creature made a sound. Not through the vacuum, but somehow directly into Alara's mind. A low, deep vibration that she felt in her bones. It was not words. It was not language. It was just pain, pure and simple. The creature was crying. "I know," Alara whispered back. "I know it hurts, but I have to get this out. You'll feel better soon. I promise." She did not know if the creature understood, but something changed in that massive eye. The swirling colors slowed. The light softened, and Alara felt something she had never expected to feel from a monster that had terrified the galaxy for 3,000 years. Trust. The third cut came faster. The crystal was breaking apart now, crumbling under her plasma cutter's heat. Alara's oxygen warning beeped in her helmet. She had maybe 20 minutes left. She kept cutting. 11 hours after she left the meridian, the crystal finally broke free. It tumbled away into the void, spinning end over end until the darkness swallowed it. The creature's wound began to close almost immediately, the flesh knitting together as if it had never been damaged at all. Alara floated there, exhausted, her arms hanging limp at her sides. She had 3 minutes of oxygen left. She should have been afraid, but she was too tired to feel anything. Then something touched her mind. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. A presence, vast and ancient, but gentle. So gentle. It wrapped around her thoughts like a warm blanket on a cold night. And in that presence, she felt things she did not have words for. Gratitude first. Deep and overwhelming. The creature was thanking her in the only way it knew how. Then curiosity. It wanted to know her. It wanted to understand this tiny, fragile thing that had helped it when everything else in the universe had only ever feared it. And beneath all of that, beneath the gratitude and the curiosity, Alara felt something that broke her heart. Loneliness. Thousands of years of terrible, crushing loneliness. The creature had been alone for so long. It had watched species come and go. It had tried to speak, to reach out, to connect. But everyone had always run. Everyone had always screamed. Everyone had always died, rather than listened on until now. "I hear you," Alara said softly. Tears floated inside her helmet, little spheres of salt water drifting past her eyes. "I hear you. You're not alone anymore." The creature's tendrils wrapped gently around her body. For one moment, Alara thought it might kill her anyway, but it simply held her, cradling her like something precious, and carried her back toward the meridian. When the airlock opened and Alara tumbled inside, gasping for breath as fresh oxygen flooded her lungs, Captain Torvex was waiting for her. The old Tervashian warrior, who had killed 1,000 enemies and never shown fear, knelt beside her with something she had never seen in his eyes. Wonder. "What happened out there?" he asked. Alara looked up at him. She looked past him at the view screen, where the creature still floated, its wounds healed, its great eye watching the ship with something that might have been love. "I made a friend," she said. "His name is Sorrow." The crew of the Meridian did not sleep that night. They gathered in the observation deck, watching the creature that floated outside their ship. It had not left. It had not attacked. It simply stayed, drifting peacefully in the starlight, its great eye half closed like a tired animal resting after a long journey. Alara sat apart from the others, her back against the cold glass, her mind full of images she did not understand. Sorrow was showing her things. Memories, she realized. Memories that stretched back further than human history. Further than the concordance. Further than any species in the galaxy had ever existed. "What is it telling you?" Seneth asked. The Veloth scientist had not stopped watching Alara since she returned from her spacewalk. There was something new in those 4 cold eyes. Interest, perhaps. Or fear. It was hard to tell with Veloth. "Everything," Alara whispered. "It's telling me everything." She closed her eyes and let the memories wash over her. She saw a galaxy young and wild, filled with new species, just learning to reach for the stars. She saw an ancient civilization, long gone now, whose name had been forgotten by time. They had been wise, these ancients. They had seen what was coming. A darkness from between dimensions. A parasite that fed on thinking minds. It had no shape. It had no body. It was just hunger, pure and endless. It slipped into the minds of intelligent beings and ate them from the inside out. Not their bodies, their thoughts, their hopes, their ability to trust. It left behind only fear and hatred, turning species against each other, making them destroy themselves. The ancients could not kill it. Nothing could kill something that had no form. So they did the only thing they could. They created the Kethvoran. Alara watched them being born. She saw massive furnaces in the hearts of stars, shaping matter and energy into living things. She saw the first of them open their eyes and look upon the universe with wonder. She felt their purpose written into every part of their being. protect, guard, keep the darkness away. For millions of years, they did their duty. They hunted the parasite across the galaxy, burning it out of infected minds, containing it in quarantine zones, keeping it from spreading. They were good at their work. They were patient. They were kind. But the ancients died, as all species eventually do. And the new species that rose to take their place did not remember. They did not know about the darkness. They did not know about the guardians who kept them safe. When the Kethvoran tried to warn them, their psychic voices were too powerful, too vast. Minds built for simple thoughts could not handle the weight of their memories. The warnings felt like attacks. The love felt like madness. Species ran screaming from the very beings, trying to save them, and the parasite saw its chance that it could not infect the Kethvoran. They were built to resist it, but it could infect everyone else. Slowly, carefully, over thousands of years, it crept into the minds of leaders and rulers across the galaxy. It whispered lies. It planted fears. It turned the guardians into monsters. The Kethvoran did not understand at first. They kept trying to communicate. They kept trying to help. But every attempt made things worse. Ships that came near them were often already infected, carrying the parasite to new worlds. The Kethvoran had to destroy them to stop the spread. This made the fear grow even stronger. Eventually, they stopped trying. They retreated to the Varith expanse, where the parasite's influence was weakest. They watched the galaxy from afar, protecting it from the darkness, even as it hated them for it. They grew lonely. They grew sad. But they never stopped doing their duty. 3,000 years of silence. 3,000 years of being called monsters. 3,000 years of protecting a galaxy that wanted them dead. Alara opened her eyes. Tears were streaming down her face. "They're not monsters," she said. Her voice was raw and broken. "They never were. They've been protecting us this whole time." Captain Torvex stepped forward. His face was hard, but something had changed behind his eyes. He had felt echoes of what Alara experienced. They all had. Sorrow's memories leaked out into the ship like light through cracks in a wall. "The Concordance needs to know," he said slowly. "If what you're showing us is true, everything we believed was wrong. Everything we feared was a lie." "It's worse than that," Alara said. She stood up, her legs shaking beneath her. "The parasite is still out there. It's been guiding the Concordance for centuries. It's in the leaders, the admirals, the councils. It's been feeding on our fear of the beasts. If we go back and try to tell them the truth..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. "They will not listen," Seneth said. The Veleth's voice was quiet, almost sad. "They cannot listen. The infection will not allow it." "Then we make them listen," Alara said. "We bring sorrow with us. We show them the truth directly, the way he showed me. The parasite can't hide from its own victims." Captain Torvex shook his head. "The moment a Kethvoran appears in Concordance space, every fleet in the galaxy will mobilize. They will fire first and refuse to ask questions later. We will start a war we cannot win." "Maybe," Alara admitted. "But if we don't try, the parasite wins anyway. It's been eating the galaxy from the inside for 3,000 years. How much longer before there's nothing left?" The bridge fell silent. Outside, Sorrow drifted peacefully, his wounds fully healed, his great eye watching the stars. He had waited so long for someone to understand. He had been alone for so long. Alara walked to the window and pressed her palm against the glass. She felt Sorrow's presence in her mind, warm and gentle. "Are you willing to try?" she asked silently. "If we go back, they might hurt you again. They might kill you. Are you willing to risk that for a galaxy that has only ever hated you?" The answer came without hesitation. A feeling of such deep, such overwhelming love that Alara had to close her eyes against it. Yes. Always yes. Because that was what the Kethvoran were made for. Not to be loved. Not to be understood. Just to protect. Alara turned back to her crew. To the Dorvashian warrior who had fought 100 battles. To the Velas scientist who believed only in logic. To the dozen other species who had spent their whole lives fearing the dark. He'll do it, she said. He'll come with us. Now we just need to be brave enough to let him. Captain Torvex was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Set a course for concordant space, he said. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. The Meridian's engines hummed to life. And beside it, glowing softly in the darkness, sorrow followed. They were going home. And they were bringing the truth with them. The Meridian emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of concordant space. Within seconds, alarms began screaming across 1,000 worlds. Alara watched the view screen as ships appeared around them. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Every species in the concordance had sent their warships. Tovashian dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons designed to crack planets open. Velith precision cruisers, cold and calculating. Korath ships, massive structures carrying millions of linked minds. The combined firepower of 47 species, all pointed at one target. Sorrow. The Kethvoran floated beside the Meridian, utterly calm. His great eye watched the gathering fleet with something that might have been sadness. He had seen this before. Many times. Ships gathering, weapons charging, fear spreading like fire through dry grass. This is High Admiral Vorath of the Concordance Defense Fleet. A voice crackled through the communication system. You have brought a Kethvoran into civilized space. This is an act of war. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Admiral, please listen, Alara said into the communicator. The creature is not hostile. We have made contact with it. We have information that could change everything the Concordance believes. Your ship has been classified as compromised. The Admiral interrupted. His voice was flat and cold. All crew members are considered lost. There will be no negotiation. You have 60 seconds to power down your engines, or we will open fire. Captain Torvex stepped forward. Let me speak to them. They know me. I have served the Concordance for 400 years. Alara nodded and moved aside. The old warrior straightened his shoulders and spoke into the communicator with all the authority of a lifetime of service. This is Captain Torvex of the research vessel Meridian. I have fought in 12 wars for the Concordance. I have killed more enemies than most of you have ever seen. I am not compromised. I am not controlled. I am asking you, as a fellow soldier, to listen. There was silence on the other end. Then, slowly, the Admiral's voice returned. Torvex, I knew your father. He was a good warrior. He was. And he taught me to face my fears, not run from them. The Kethvoran are not what we think they are. They have been protecting us. The real enemy is something else entirely. Something that has been hiding among us for 3,000 years. Impossible. I have seen the proof myself. I have felt it in my mind. The creature shared its memories with us. With all of us. It is not lying. It cannot lie. Its thoughts are open to anyone willing to receive them. Another long pause. Alara held her breath. Maybe this would work. Maybe the Admiral would listen. Maybe your mind has been infected, the Admiral said finally. His voice had changed. It was harder now, colder. The creature has poisoned your thoughts. This is exactly what the old records warned us about. The Kethvoran do not attack bodies. They attack minds. They make you believe things. They make you trust them. And then they consume you. That's not true. Enough. The word cut through the communication like a blade. You have 30 seconds. Then we fire. Alara felt sorrow's presence brush against her mind. He was not angry. He was not surprised. He had expected this. He had always expected this. We need to go to the Senate, she said quickly. If we can get an audience, if we can show them directly. The Senate is already watching, Seneth said. The Velith was monitoring dozens of communication channels at once. Every leader in the Concordance is observing this standoff. If you want to speak to them, you can speak now. Alara grabbed the communicator. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Leaders of the Galactic Concordance. I am Dr. Alara Vance, human xenobiologist. I have made first contact with the Cathforan. I have learned the truth about them and about the real threat facing our galaxy. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain. If you don't believe me after that, you can destroy us all. But give me 5 minutes. Give yourselves a chance to hear something other than fear. The fleet held its position. Weapons remained charged, but no one fired. Alara took this as permission to continue. She spoke quickly, clearly, telling them everything sorrow had shown her. The ancient civilization that created the Guardians. The dimensional parasite that fed on intelligent minds. The thousands of years of misunderstanding that had turned protectors into monsters. She spoke until her throat was raw, until she had nothing left to say. When she finished, there was silence. Then the voices started. Lies, manipulation, kill. It now before it spreads. The human is infected. Destroy them all. Alara watched the view screen in horror as the fleet began to move. Ships that had been holding position now advanced, their weapons glowing bright with gathered energy. The fear was winning. The parasite was winning, but something else was happening too. Across the fleet, she could see leaders speaking on their view screens. Some of them looked normal. Angry, maybe. Scared, but normal. Others looked wrong. Their movements were too stiff. Their words were too perfect. And their eyes flickered with something dark and hungry, just for a moment before returning to normal. The infection, she whispered. You can see it. If you look closely, you can actually see it. Captain Torvex leaned close to the view screen. His old eyes narrowed. She's right. Something is wrong with Admiral Varth. With several of the council members. They're moving like puppets. The parasite, Seneth said. It has been guiding this response from the beginning. It cannot allow the truth to spread. It will destroy anything that threatens its control. The fleet completed its advance. 10,000 ships now surrounded the Meridian and Sorrow, their weapons locked and ready. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Any last words? Admiral Varth's voice echoed through the communication system. It did not sound quite right anymore. The coldness had become something else. Something inhuman. Alara closed her eyes. She had tried. She had failed. The galaxy would continue in darkness, and no one would ever know the truth. Then a new voice cut through the channel. This is Ambassador Chun of the United Human Delegation. We stand with Dr. Vance. Alara's eyes snapped open. On the view screen, she saw a single ship moving through the massive fleet. It was tiny compared to the Torvashian dreadnoughts, a diplomatic cruiser built for meetings, not battles. It carried no weapons worth mentioning. It would be vaporized in seconds if the fleet opened fire, but it was moving directly between the guns and Sorrow. Humans, Admiral Varth spat. You are new to this galaxy. You do not understand what you are doing. We understand perfectly, Ambassador Chen replied. Her voice was calm and clear. We understand that a woman from our species saw a wounded creature and chose to help it instead of fear it. We understand that she risked her life to heal something everyone else would have run from. We understand that she has brought back knowledge that could save billions of lives. And you want to destroy it without even listening. You are protecting a monster. We are protecting our own. Dr. Vance is human. And humans do not abandon their own. Other ships began moving. Small ships. Tiny ships. Every human vessel in the sector was converging on the meridian, forming a thin line between the fleet and the creature. There were only 12 of them. 12 ships against 10,000. You will die, Admiral Vorath said. You will all die for nothing. Maybe, Ambassador Chun said. But at least we'll die knowing we did what was right. At least we'll die knowing we chose kindness over fear. The fleet's weapons hummed louder. Fingers hovered over firing controls. The moment stretched out, endless and terrible. Alara stood at the view screen, watching the human ships hold their position. They were not warriors. They were diplomats, scientists, traders. They had families back on Earth. They had lives they wanted to live. And they were willing to throw it all away for a creature they had never met. Just because one of their own had asked them to. She understood, in that moment, what it meant to be human. The Admiral's voice echoed through the void, cold and final. Open fire. The weapons fired. 10,000 beams of light screamed across the void, enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Alara closed her eyes, waiting for the end. It never came. When she opened her eyes, the space around them was filled with Kethvoran. Hundreds of them. They had appeared from nowhere, phasing through dimensions the way they always had, their massive bodies forming a living wall between the fleet and the tiny cluster of human ships. The weapons' fire splashed against their bodies like water against stone, doing nothing. Sorrow had called his family. The fleet went silent. Even Admiral Vorath, with all his infected rage, could not speak. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had feared the beasts. Now they were here, all of them, surrounding the greatest war fleet ever assembled. Every nightmare, every legend, every whispered story of extinction had come to life, and they did nothing. The Kethvoran simply floated there, their great eyes watching, waiting. They did not attack. They did not advance. They just protected, the way they had always protected, even when no one understood. Alara felt Sorrow's mind touch hers one last time. There was a question in it. Permission. He wanted to show them what he had shown her. All of them. Every mind in the fleet. Every leader watching across the galaxy. Yes, she whispered. Show them everything. The universe changed. Every person in the Concordance fleet felt it at the same moment. A presence, vast and ancient, but gentle beyond words. It did not force itself into their minds. It did not attack or overwhelm. It simply offered, like an open hand reaching out in the darkness. And for those brave enough to take that hand, the memories came. Admiral Vorath screamed. The thing inside him, the parasite that had been guiding his thoughts for years, burned at the touch of something it could not understand. The Kethvoran's memories were full of compassion, full of love, full of the simple desire to protect and heal. The parasite fed on fear and hatred. It could not digest kindness. It could not corrupt hope. Across the fleet, across the entire galaxy, the infected leaders collapsed. They thrashed and screamed as the darkness inside them died, burned away by the light of 3,000 years of patient, unbroken love. When they rose again, their eyes were clear. Their minds were their own, and they remembered. They remembered what it felt like before the fear, before the parasite had crept into their thoughts and turned them against the guardians who only wanted to help. They remembered being young species, looking up at the stars with wonder instead of terror. They remembered trusting. One by one, the weapons powered down. Alara watched through tear-filled eyes as the great warships lowered their guns. She watched soldiers and admirals weep openly, overwhelmed by emotions they had not felt in centuries. She watched ancient enemies reach out to each other, confused and scared, but no longer hateful. The parasite was not dead. It could never truly die. Not entirely. But it was weak now, starving. The fear that had fed it for 3,000 years was gone, replaced by something it could never consume. Admiral Varth's face appeared on the view screen. He looked old suddenly, older than Alara had ever seen a Tovashian look. But his eyes were clear, and when he spoke, his voice shook with something that might have been shame. "I remember," he said. "I remember before the darkness. I was a child when it first touched me. I thought the fear was mine. I thought the hatred was mine. But it wasn't. It was never mine." He paused, struggling with words that did not come easily to a warrior who had spent his whole life fighting. The human was right. The Kethvoran were right. And we were wrong. For 3,000 years, we hunted our own protectors while the real enemy sat inside our minds and laughed. What happens now? Alara asked. Admiral Varth looked past her at the hundreds of Kethvoran floating peacefully in the void. That's Sorrow, who watched the scene with his great eye full of something that looked like hope. "Now we apologize," the Admiral said. "And we learn. And we do better." The days that followed were chaos, but it was a good kind of chaos. The kind that comes when old walls fall down and new bridges are built. The Galactic Concordance held emergency sessions that lasted for weeks. Leaders who had been enemies for centuries sat down together and talked. Really talked, for the first time in their lives. The Kethvoran were invited to join the Concordance as full members. They declined politely. They preferred to stay in the Varith Expanse, watching over the galaxy from the darkness. But they promised to come if they were needed. They promised to answer if anyone called. Alara became the first human ambassador to the Kethvoran. It was a strange job, translating between beings of pure thought and creatures of flesh and blood. But she loved it. She loved sitting with Sorrow in the quiet darkness between stars, sharing memories and stories and dreams. One day, about a year after everything changed, she asked him a question that had been bothering her. "Why did you trust me?" she said. "Back on the Meridian. You didn't know me. You didn't know anything about humans. We're young and foolish and scared of everything. Why did you let me help you?" Sorrow's answer came as a feeling, not words. An image of a tiny figure in a spacesuit, floating towards something vast and terrifying. An image of hands working carefully to remove a wound that had been there for centuries. An image of kindness, simple and pure, given without expectation of return. "Because you asked what I needed," Sorrow said in her mind, "instead of asking what you should fear." Alara smiled. She understood. That same week, the Concordance held a ceremony to honor the humans who had stood between the fleet and the Kethvoran. Representatives from all 47 species attended. Ancient warriors bowed to human diplomats. Cold scientists wept as they thanked human traitors. A galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as weak and sentimental now acknowledged them as something far more valuable. The ceremony ended with a question from a Velith child. She was small, barely old enough to speak, with 4 bright eyes full of curiosity. Why did the humans save the galaxy? She asked her parents. They are smaller than us, younger than us. They have no great weapons or ancient wisdom. How did they do what no one else could do? The parents had no answer, but a human woman kneeling nearby did. Would you like to know a secret? She asked the child. The girl nodded eagerly. The woman smiled. She had gray hair now, lines around her eyes, hands that had healed creatures no one else dared to touch. But her voice was young when she spoke. We were the only ones still young enough to ask, what if it's scared? Instead of, what if it's dangerous? We were the only ones who still remembered that kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest thing in the universe. The child thought about this for a moment. Then she smiled, showing tiny teeth. I want to be kind when I grow up, she said. Woman laughed softly and patted her head. Then you will be stronger than any warrior who ever lived. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, Sorrow felt this moment through his bond with Alara. He felt the child's innocent words. He felt the hope spreading through the galaxy, slow but steady, like light pushing back shadows. For the first time in 3,000 years, he did not feel alone. The beasts and the humans worked together after that. The guardians and the healers. They kept the galaxy safe from the darkness, not through fear or weapons, but through understanding, through kindness, through the simple belief that even the most terrifying thing in the universe might just be something scared and alone, waiting for someone to ask if it was okay. And that belief, born in the heart of one small human woman, changed everything. Forever.